Hello and welcome to Life in the Weeds. My name is Alex Belew and I am the host. Today we sit down with Meghan Thompson. Meghan is a pastry chef from Boston. She's become a friend of mine over the last 2 years, and we met through Instagram. Crazy how social media can actually be good for something. She has really been working in some of the best restaurants in Boston, and now she has decided to go at it on her own, starting to do some creative consulting for different restaurants, doing a little catering, a little private chefing, and we dig into her story, her journey, how she got there, and what she plans to do in the future. Please enjoy this episode with Meghan Thompson.
Hey,
Chef,
how are you?
what's up?
Not much. What's going on?
Oh, another day in paradise.
Yep.
It's raining here.
Oh, it's beautiful and sunny here.
You have a turtle in your backyard.
Ew. I was actually meant to go check if it's still there.
You have the weirdest life to me. I don't know. I don't know why. It's like you work in one of the best cities in the world and you live with a lake in your backyard.
Yeah, I got pretty fortunate.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And your dog has literally the best life of any animal I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think we're like in that category of people that buy, a home with a yard for their animal.
That's actually the new thing, I think. I've heard that, like, not that you're a millennial, neither, well, I guess I technically am. But I mean, they are buying homes for their dogs now instead of for kids. It's the way the world goes.
Or just renting gets extremely expensive, so.
There is that.
Yeah.
It's crazy that, like, I can rent my home for $1,000 more than I pay for it a month.
Isn't that? Yeah, it's nuts.
Renting is a poor man's game.
Yeah, for real.
Which is why I'm poor. I rent this restaurant. Oh, man. How are you?
I'm good.
You've had a long vacation.
I had a week off a month ago.
Yeah.
Month and a half ago.
You were in the mountains for a while skiing.
Yeah, well, we closed, when I was at the restaurant, we closed the month of January, and then I'm extending it through February. So that was like, you're right, that was a long vacation. That now feels like that was a year ago, but.
I had to unfollow you for a while just so I could, I'm just kidding, I didn't do that. But it was, FOMO for real. I mean, your views are just way different than my views.
Right.
There's literally a dump behind my golf course, right? So, I mean, it's a mountain, but it's a mountain of shit. And it smells terrible. Oh, man. So, okay. You and I should not know each other at all, really. Not that we really know each other, but we should have no idea who either one of us is. But I will say social media is good for a few things. Wasting time is one of them. But introducing yourself to people that you would not normally know and be anywhere in the same circle with, it's pretty cool for that. And sometimes people respond to messages like you, and sometimes they don't because either they're overwhelmed with messages or they're just rude. For a northerner, you're not very rude, which is very interesting.
Thank you.
You've always been incredibly pleasant to talk to. You willingly share ideas and tips and tell me that I'm an idiot when my muffins are concave and sinking. And I am very thankful for that. It's nice to be able to, because none of us know everything about the world of food.
Yeah.
For me to be able to text you and you to take time to say, have you done this? Have you done that? Think about this. That means a lot to me because you're busy. You got big stuff going on.
I mean, I think it's one of those things, and there's times where I do feel like inundated with work and everything, and it's hard to even like some of my friends, I feel like sometimes I'm not as great as being present and checking in. But I feel like in our community and the food world, it's I just recently was talking with a woman and she's like, I don't even know you. And you're helping me out. I'm sorry for bothering with questions. And I don't know. I feel like we all have to help each other out if we don't have that.
I agree
that's
with
what's
you.
nice about it, even how we've kind of connected and, have met or whatever. It's just, I don't know. I think that's the bright side of like what we're doing and sort of like the positive side, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I've had many scenarios where it goes the other direction. And so I've asked people, there's a restaurant in Miami, this is like 4 years ago, they posted something and it looked super awesome. And I was like, hey, I'd really love to know the formula for this or the technique that you use to get it to be like this. And they were like, their response was, like a magician, a chef never reveals their secrets. And I'm like, what a douchebag.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like everything in some way has like all been done before. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, okay, like you don't have to share your recipe, but I think just being like, oh, I use this technique, or like I added this in the end. It's like
Right.
no one's gonna know in Nashville that you're not trying to hijack like
No.
someone else's like
1,500 miles away, I'm stealing your recipe. And nobody's going to be like, you know what? I had this exact dish in Miami last week. And I'm the kind of guy, like I won like a biscuit competition a few years ago. And so they asked me to put my biscuit recipe in different publications. I have no worries. Like, so you're going to make them at home? Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But the majority of people, chefs write cookbooks all the time. Most people still go eat at their restaurants, though, because nobody's going to make that shit at home, right? Like,
or it's always going to come out a little bit different, right? It's
absolutely.
Like, there's like a different, patience behind it, or like more like intuitive.
Yeah, just foundational knowledge about how it's going to work out. I mean, you've given me recipes, and I know they didn't turn out the way they would if you had made them. So I don't think it was supposed to look like that. Yeah, I mean, you give, and I knew this from teaching culinary school for 3 years. You give 20 people the same recipe, you're going to get 20 different variations of that recipe.
Yeah.
19 are not edible, generally. So, okay, you've gone from, did you go to culinary school? You went to Newberry? Is that culinary school?
Yep, yeah. I did like a culinary management program.
Okay. So you graduated there. Well, we're going to really fast forward and then kind of come back. And so you
I got like 17 years to go through.
Right. So you're born, now you're here. Great talk. And so you've worked at some pretty great restaurants that have got some clout behind them. Townsman was great with Matthew Jennings, SRV. I've eaten there twice in Boston. It's stupid delicious, and it's an incredibly awesome space. It's really dark at night, so I feel like an old man turning my iPhone flashlight on to read the menu.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, I don't think I am. And then now you're kind of on your own, right?
Yeah, I just left about a month and a half ago, maybe beginning of April. I guess almost 2 months now. 2 months. Here we are.
Time flies when you're on vacation, Chef.
I know, right? I've been working. So I've just kind of had like, I think maybe everyone or most people had like some sort of epiphany last year, whether it's in your personal relationship or work. I had a couple like other things happen last year that just kind of gave me like, I don't know, I just finally got to the place that I felt like I was ready to move on from restaurants, at least for now, and just kind of take a step back. And I have a few things I want to work on, for like personal businesses, but for now I'm mostly, private chefing and collaborating with some like friends of mine, kind of cooking savory again, which is super fun, wedding cakes, some consulting. So it's just been kind of nice to like, I'm kind of making my own schedule. I can take on as much work as I want or as little. Definitely the summer is going to be crazy, but it's fun. And I'm kind of just excited to like see what opportunities arise and make some for myself at the same time. So
was there a specific point? Was it during COVID that you kind of had I'm kind of done with this? Like, I think it's time for me to step out on my own.
Yeah. When we closed initially last year, I remember when we reopened the restaurant in July or June, and I thought to myself, I was like, this would be the perfect time for a new pastry chef to take over, just like randomly. This wasn't even me thinking about leaving, but just in the sense that like they can come in as like a new restaurant again. And I thought that was like odd that was in my mind. And then kind of as a few months went in, I just like, I don't know. I felt like I'm like on this hamster wheel, you know what I mean? Has nothing to do with the people I worked for and where I work. Cause I really like love that place. I love everyone I work with there. It's been a really great crew. But yeah, it just felt like time. I felt like I think I've always felt like I needed restaurants to be successful, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's
like
security.
the name behind the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've been known by certain people. It's just like, oh, because she works there or there. And I just feel like, I guess I don't know if it's more confident or whatever, that I don't necessarily need that restaurant to be successful. So I don't know, just kind of like want to shake things up. And I felt like, cool, if I do this on my own, I fall flat on my face, I'm okay with that. And I can always go back.
Sure.
So just kind of needed that thought to be in my head and be like, cool with it.
It's so weird that you talk about kind of the confidence behind being on your own. I was talking with Alex Harrell yesterday, who was a chef in New Orleans, Food and Wine, best chef in New Orleans in 2016. Like, the dude's got a solid resume. He's got a really good career. And he was talking about how, the people that he sees in his field, he still thinks, I'm this little boy from Alabama. Like, who am I? I don't hold a candle to these people. And you, in my eyes, have no reason to feel like you need a restaurant to say, look at me. I mean, your resume speaks for itself. Your desserts are fantastic. I mean, you have a huge savory element in your desserts, which really catches a lot of people off. I mean, parsnip ice cream is not really a Ben and Jerry's thing, right? So
Right.
you have this ability to create these things that normally you wouldn't expect them to go together, and then you eat them and you're like, what did I just eat? That was, can I have another? That was unreal. So good. But I do think at a certain extent, like, you get the clout and the credibility from working at those places that now you are established and you can go out on your own and say, this is what I've done. This is where I've been. And now you can take me for what I'm worth, and I'm going to do something on my own.
Right.
What are you doing consulting for other restaurants? How did you line up those clients if you did?
That's what I'm like kind of gearing towards doing more of. I just want to like kind of let the dust settle from COVID and let restaurants kind of like get back on their feet. 'Cause it's just been such a crazy time, and obviously hiring is pretty much
in the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like across the country, it's pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, it's weird. I've got a friend that owns a restaurant here that's one of the oldest restaurants in this town, and I think they have 5 or 6 locations. They had a job fair last weekend, and 175 people came to the job fair. They all got interviews scheduled.
Yeah.
One showed up for the interview. One out of 175.
That's happening a lot, actually. Like, people no showing, and I just like, I don't know, maybe it's generational for me that I just
don't do that.
Yeah, like I just have like, and it happened even with me when I was, hiring 2 years ago. I've had people just like not show up, and I don't know, maybe it's just like what my mom taught me, but just like the common courtesy of like, hey, you know what, I changed my mind, or I went another direction, or like I'm no longer interested, like whatever, just be like, I'm not showing up.
Just communicate.
Yeah, and it just like, it blows my mind. That's like, I don't know,
it's being ghosted.
Seconds, you could even just text, like whatever,
Yeah, I mean, I've posted several times where my interview didn't show up, and it's just absurd to me. I remember when we first started opening Dallas and Jane, I'd say 65 to 70% of my interviews that were scheduled and confirmed the night before didn't show up that day. And, I wasted so much time sitting here waiting on this person to show up, and I'm a bit of a natural worrier. And so these are people I've never met, and I'm like, did you get in a car wreck? Are you okay?
Yeah,
are you
okay?
lost?
Yeah.
Like, do you need something? And then just no comment. And after about the 5th or 6th one, I just had this like canned response that I would just copy and paste from my notes that was like, listen, I totally understand if you didn't want to work here, but do yourself a favor and learn some common courtesy, because it will go farther in life than just being like this. I mean, you're not just wasting your time, you're wasting my time. And that's valuable to some people. There's other things I could be doing.
Right.
It's just bananas.
Typically, too, we're like juggling,
1,000 things,
and
right?
Getting stuff ready and managing people and deliveries, and
it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. So you live how far from the city?
About an hour. It's like 30. Well, just under an hour, but about 30 something miles.
And how long have you made that commute?
I would say about 3 years, 3.5.
Yeah. Do you enjoy the ride?
It's one of those things. I laugh because when I was working there, one of the owners, my friend Jim, like once in a while he'd be like, doesn't your commute suck? Like, and I'm like, I don't think about it, not talking about it. He's like, yeah, but like you work this many hours a day and then you're commuting. And then what's your drive? I was taking the commuter rail.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm like, just one of those things. Like, nope, not thinking about it. I just do it because then I'm not going to want to do it.
Yeah. Put my headphones
But
in and just go.
yeah, but for the most part, like, it gave me the first year or two. I like actually really liked it because it forced me to like literally sit down and like take time.
Right.
And so without driving, so that way I was like able to read. If I had to like update menus or menu note type recipes, I could get ahead on office work. So I started like utilizing it as just time to either like get stuff done or just kind of like chill out time. So
Yeah.
I actually really liked it.
I never minded the drive home from work. It was always the drive getting to work for some reason, because the wind down time, I need that, because I'm kind of the guy that walks in the house and I'm like, okay, don't talk to me for 5 or 10 minutes. I need to acclimate myself to this environment. I need to take off my shoes. I need to wrap my head around not being busy for a second. But now I come home, and if it's the nights I get to come home before the boys are in bed, it's immediate like, daddy, 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 daddy. It's just insanity. But those are precious moments that I wouldn't trade for anything. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Are you nervous at all about, and I hope I don't make you nervous by asking you this question, are you nervous at all about the financial security from going from, having a paycheck that was being issued to you to now you're having to make it on your own?
Yeah, I mean,
Big gulp.
a little bit. Like, I went into this like knowing I've had like some savings and just like been smart about the last few years, not with this obvious intention. I think the biggest bummer is probably health insurance.
Oh God, yeah, it's expensive.
No matter what, it's expensive. So that's kind of a pain. But other than that, I don't know. So far, I'm doing okay. 2 months in. And I know how much work I've lined up for the next few months. So I feel really good about it, honestly. The fall, I don't have as much booked right now, but at the same time, if you asked me back in March what my summer looked like, it was like pretty wide open.
Yeah.
But then by April, I was like lined up. So I feel good that, things are going to continue to pick up as months get closer, So I don't know. I feel, and I've also have some contacts and friends that I know I can pick up work with, or even Boston has this private chef. Like, I don't know who's behind it, but I've seen like their Instagram or whatever. But basically, you can sign up as a private chef, put up your profile, and then someone can like look through the website, and you can be like, oh, cool, like she's into this, or like this guy's into that, like that's their style, like, and kind of hire a chef that way. So I feel like I have outlets I can go if I'm feeling like I'm not getting work or something.
Do you know who Will Goldfarb is? Is that the name?
Yeah.
Pastry chef?
Yeah, he's out in Thailand, right?
Yeah. Just has like a dessert bar.
Yeah.
That'd be badass.
Yeah, I know, right? I actually really wanted to do that like 10 years ago, but
I could see you doing that. Your creations, I would go, that would be my dinner, and just sit there and line up with 10
drink
desserts.
some whiskey, eat some dessert.
Oh man, 10 desserts from Meg. I'm down. Let's go. What do you have here? This is a pig trotter parfait. Oh, well, that sounds terrible, but I'm sure she's going to make it amazing. Pair it with some cherries. It's good to go. What's been the toughest restaurant for you to work at? Mentally, physically, all of them? Even from a growth standpoint, because obviously you didn't start out making the food that you make now. So where was your biggest learning curve?
Right. I would say biggest learning curve for sure was I opened Steel Rye with my friend Dan Kerrigan, who is still, crushing it. It's in Milton, just outside the city. And, I had to be, I don't know, maybe, how old am I now? I have to do math here. I don't know. It was like 10 plus years ago, but so I was like my early 20s, and it was like my first like real pastry chef like role, and that place seats like 500 people.
Wow.
It was easily selling over 200 desserts a night.
That's
like,
a lot.
It's a lot. We were also like, it was just crazy. Like, we were just busy. I was working from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. pretty much every day for like 6 months. And then finally I remember taking a weekend off and just being like crash and burn.
Oh, to be young again.
Oh, I know. It was so much easier back then. And I would still wake up and work out before.
Right. Yeah. Now I can't even. I have to like roll out of bed onto my knees.
And I would still have drinks after work. So somehow I managed to like
Wonder
burn
Woman.
the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
But I remember just when I got the opportunity to open Townsman, I was like, all right, cool. Like another restaurant opening underneath my belt. Like I really want to do it again and do it better and like learn from my mistakes in the first restaurant.
Did Matt come to you?
Actually, it was Brian Young who was
Okay.
our opening CDC.
Okay.
So he
How'd they find out about you?
So Brian knew me from events and had liked desserts, and he came in. I remember I didn't think anything of it, but he came to Steel and Rye one night and like ate the whole dessert menu, and it was like just after I left. It was like one of the first nights I actually left, like at 10 o'clock or something or 11 o'clock. And
You're kicking
this is
yourself the
also
whole
like
time.
3 years in. But he, texted me. He's like, "Dude, I just had all your desserts. They're fucking awesome." Like, sorry, language.
It's not FCC
can
regulated.
we meet up? I want to catch up. And we've been talking about meeting up outside of like work or, events just because we live down the street from each other. So I meet him for drinks one night. He's like, all right, I have this like thing I'm doing with a friend. You might have heard about it. I can't quite tell you what it is yet, but would you want to open another restaurant? So I ended up meeting with him and Matt, a week later and kind of went through the whole like process. So that's how we got introduced to each other.
How long were you at Townsman?
I think I was working probably 3 or 4 months with them before we actually opened, and then I think I was there for about 3 years.
And then from there to SRV?
Yeah, yep. And so that kind of happened. Once again, it was like a friend of mine, Alex, that I worked with at the country club back in the day. She was one of their opening managers. And they had just been open for a year. And she was like, hey, would you want to come meet the chefs over here? I know you're not looking to leave. They need some consulting help with like the dessert program. Would you talk to them? So I met them like nonchalantly, like not thinking of it as a job opportunity. And they were like, yeah, like they want to show me the space. Would it be possible to add on a dessert station? This is what they're working with. What would they need to have a successful dessert program? And then after a couple of meetings, they're like, so do you want a job? So that's kind of how that worked out.
Their food is way different than Townsman, though. I mean, it's you're talking Italian, right? I mean, that's a big difference from what you came from. So how did you? Again, no pastry chef's going to know everything. So how did you transition from stylistically from one to another? Was that a hard process? Did you have to go through a massive learning phase?
Yes and no. Well, yes. I mean, I feel like every day in our industry kind of feels like a learning day. But yeah, I had to do a lot of research because I was supposed to go last year, go figure, but I've never been to Italy and I'm not Italian.
No?
You can't tell. So I just really had to do a lot of reading. Both the chefs at the time, one's no longer there, but the two head chefs there, which is its own uniqueness. But the two of them both like worked in Italy together, and they've been to Italy a bunch. So, and one is pretty much 100% Italian. I think the other one's 50% Italian. So I got to learn a lot from them. So they really helped kind of pull me in the direction of like stuff to look for. But a lot of it was, I think, researching certain ingredients or things that resonated with Northern Italian food and desserts in particular. But yeah, and I think the biggest learning curve was, and one of the biggest reasons I took the job is they were milling all their grains in house for the pasta and bread.
That's pretty
and
awesome.
This is kind of before a lot of places were doing that.
Right. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's definitely picked up in the last 4 years. But yeah, and I kind of had to like basically relearn how to make bread because it's so different than using commercial flour.
Sure. I didn't know if it was maybe just like semantics. Like, so you just basically had to learn. I'm not going to say gelato. I'm going to say affogato, right? So we're just going to rename things. It's a huge difference in ingredients and styles and techniques. And I would struggle going from making contemporary American food to like, put me at an Asian restaurant. I'd be like, well, I'm a little out of my depth here. I know what hoisin sauce is.
Yeah.
That's about as far as it goes.
I think part of it is especially in savory cooking, like there's different techniques for different cultures of food and styles of food, but at the same time, like end of the day, like how to cook, right? And so it's kind of similar to pastry where a lot of techniques like all sort of originate from like classic French techniques, and then they kind of get a little bit distorted through different countries and regions, but
foundationally it's all the same.
Yeah, like if like how to make, if all like the kind of classic techniques in pastry itself, it's or at least like the standards,
Yep.
it's fairly easy to, because then you're adapting like flavor profiles and things like that.
Yeah, I
I've
mean, an
also
ice
learned to
cream is
call a
an
lot of
ice
things
cream.
torta, which is the most like basic word in Italy for like, it could be cake, it could be tart, it could be so many things. So
It's just a word. It's all
I just kind of threw
encompassing.
in torta a lot.
Chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. Let's go with torta. It sounds good.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
And
Chocolate torta.
put some
Done. Down the
gelato on
end.
it. Well, that's awesome. Did you struggle with finding a balance between friends, personal life, social life, dog life, lake life? I mean, I feel like you are a very outdoorsy person.
Yeah.
And to be trapped inside of a kitchen, it's a little bit stifling to stifle
Yeah.
who you are. So how did you find that balance?
I really haven't, honestly, until this past year, and that's kind of like another big reason for me leaving is, and me doing my own thing is being able to block off time and really have a better life work balance because most of my friends are my work people I've worked with or I work with, or currently working with, just because it's hard to make time for your friends outside the
Yeah,
restaurant. So
it's
your
just
restaurant
association.
people become your friends. And some you hang on to for 10 years, and some you kind of like move on in different routes in life.
Yep.
But yeah, anytime I'm outside of work, I have to be outdoors. So like,
I mean, you literally
in the
live on a lake.
winter, like I hate winter, which is crazy. I still live here, but whatever. I'll go for like winter hikes and snowboard or just anything, just get fresh air. But yeah, I worked particularly in a basement for the last 4 years, which has been like an ongoing joke at that restaurant, and it honestly would make me crazy, especially in the winter. Because I go to work, it's dark. I leave work, it's
It's
dark.
dark. You're down in
I'm
work. It's
not
dark.
taking breaks and like hanging outside for an hour during the day when it's 30 degrees out.
Yeah, it's like prison. I mean, it's a little prisony, but you get paid. So there's
Yeah.
that, and you make
And
some
it's
really
good
cool
bread.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. So how did you get to where you are now? I mean, did you want to bake and want to pursue pastry from a young age? Was it family? Was it what made you really love it?
Um, I think everything's kind of happened sort of like naturally. Like one opportunity has led to the next. I definitely always knew I wanted to do something either with like animals or food. Um, Food kind of seemed like the more realistic, out or like not outlet, but the more realistic like whatever track for me. So I started looking up culinary schools when I was in high school, and then kind of landed on Newberry College because I liked that I was getting a business degree and was learning a little bit more. And just financially, that college like was more accessible for me than going to Johnson & Wales or CIA.
Right.
Um,
Culinary school is
so
not cheap.
yeah, exactly. So I was able to get like a really good grant going to Newberry, and I was able to like lock in that like first year rate for the 4 years. So basically, and they had mostly a culinary program. They didn't really have a big pastry program. So when I was at school, I like got a job right away at the country club, which I was doing all savory. So savory for about 6 or 7 years. But all my part-time jobs on top of that were like at a cake shop, at a bakery. And then when I was at that country club, if I had even more free time, I'd be working in the bake shop and staging with them because I was like so enamored by, the pastry life.
Right. Is it safe to say that a large part of your knowledge is self-taught?
Um, no, I mean a little bit on the pastry end, but I worked under like a really great chef at the club. So I feel like I got all my like savory like knife work, like like all your technique and cooking, different styles there, and then I worked as the pastry chef there for a couple years. So basically, like I got to pastry because there was a assistant pastry chef there that was there for 13 years, and he literally put in a 2 week notice. And my chef at the time was just like floored. And I think by then I was like lead line cook or whatever. And he's like, Meg, he's like, do you want to be pastry? And I was like, yeah, I love pastry. He's like, this is your opportunity. He's like, go be Dave's assistant and like learn from him. I was like, okay, yeah, chef. So I took that job, and got a little bump in pay. And that's what I did for a couple years before opening Steel and Rye. And then when that opportunity arose, it just kind of like, that made me kind of officially in
Pastry
the
land.
pastry side of things.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of all history. So
It's so weird how people get promoted or new jobs in restaurants. There's no system. It's like, hey, the grill guy didn't show up. You want to do it? Yeah, I've never grilled anything. You'll be fine. You know?
We'll walk you through it.
Yeah. It's we have 300 rezos tonight, so buckle up. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Which one is the New York strip? I'm sorry, I'm a little lost here. What do you think your hardest learned lesson has been?
Honestly, I feel like I probably blocked them out because I've probably had so many that I just can't even keep track of them all.
There's been so many sucky moments I can't keep track.
I'm trying to think of like, I'll probably get off this call and like, you know, immediately think of like several examples.
You can text it to me and I'll post it on Instagram.
Yeah, there you go. Hardest learned lesson. I think I want to say it's probably when I was opening Steel Rye. I was, you know, young myself and like still kind of like grasping everything. But I was, you know, in this management position in a really busy restaurant. And I just remember getting I was like a little bit more, just getting frustrated with the assistants I had, or one assistant in particular that I had at the time. And she happened to be like much older than me. It was kind of a weird dynamic. She wanted to take a step back. But I just remember thinking like, oh, but she used to be a pastry chef. I can like totally trust this woman. She couldn't like make pastry cream to save her life. And I was so, out of everything I was like trying to juggle and deal with, I just remember being so frustrated with her and like almost just like shutting down and being like, I can't even give her time
the simplest
or attention.
task. Yeah.
It was like, all right, I'll just do it myself kind of deal. But I think I've learned since that particular like one incident I remember walking away from like a year later, just try to be really patient. I always take on stages. I love teaching people. I love, you know, and I can always learn from everyone else. So
Absolutely.
I feel like if I can offer something in exchange. But yeah, I think maybe just, I'm generally a patient person, but I think just patience and just sort of thinking about that person's background and not just assuming also that they can do X, Y, or Z. But
yeah,
I don't know.
That's good. We could all learn to be a little bit more patient.
Yeah.
Me especially. I have the world's smallest fuse. It's like half the time I feel like it's broken off in me, and I see a fire and I'm like, bam, just explode. I don't even have time for my fuse to get lit. It's just poof, gone. Do you have a mentor or advisor? Is there anybody that you go to that any of your past chefs that you still kind of talk to?
Yeah, I think I still am on pretty good terms with. By pretty good terms, I mean I still talk with all my past chefs I've worked with. I have in the past, not recently, like reached out to the chef I worked for at the Country Club, Robert Mancuso, who's out in California. But you know, him and I, like over the years, I would like bounce off, you know, whether it's job opportunities with him and get his advice. So he's always been a great one. And then as far as like in Boston, one of my buddies, Brian Mercury, who's an insanely talented pastry chef, him and I would always meet up. We haven't seen each other much in the past year because of COVID, and he has a family. You know, we were like each other's go-to post-work, vent about something, the event about it, how is it being done in your restaurant, you know, kind of that little pastry camaraderie.
Yep.
But also just, you know, every job opportunity I've taken since Steel Rye, I've like gone to him and just been like, what do you think of this? What are you making right now? Like, what should I be making? Because it's otherwise a shot in the dark. Like, who knows what?
Yeah.
You don't really know what you deserve, what your self-worth is, and as far as like monetary as a salary, and
it's so hard it's so weird that we can't put a value on ourselves. People have asked me like, hey, how much do you charge for a 10-person dinner? And I'm like, $5, $10. I don't know. I mean, I'm like,
yeah.
It's hard for
I'm
me to.
recently learning I'm charging too little. Like all my friends are charging like 5 times. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I had so I've got a double stack Vulcan convection oven here, and the top half went out. There's only one company in Tennessee that fixes them. And so they're in Nashville. $181 an hour and 98 cents a mile. So it cost me $400 just for them to get here, look at it, and then get back.
Wow.
And that made me go, I'm charging way too little and not valuing the time that I have to. You know, I heard a story one time that was this factory is, they've got this huge machine and the machine breaks down and the whole line gets shut down, right? So nobody can produce anything. They're not making any money. The workers are standing there. So they find a guy that can fix this machine. He shows up, looks at it, takes out a hammer, taps it. The whole thing fires up in like 5 seconds, right? And they're all like, oh my God, thank you so much. You saved us. And he's like, I'll send you my invoice, no big deal. And so he sends an invoice, and it's for $10,000. The manager's like, I don't understand. I'm going to need an itemized invoice for this. And he said, sure. So he sends it back, and he said, hammer, $5. Knowing where to hit the hammer, $9,995.
Oh my God.
And it comes down to the, how much are we worth? That's like the years of training that you've gone through, the relentless nights and hours that you've worked, and those bad experiences that you've had. They've got to amount to something. And it's not, it doesn't make sense to do a party for 10 people for $100. It just, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. And if that's too expensive, you're welcome to go to Outback,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to like account for the time you're taking to source your ingredients, to write the menu, to prep, to being in the person's house and cooking for them and serving it and cleaning up and the whole, your travel.
Yeah. It's not just the 3 hours that were in your house. There's so many more hours before that with menu planning and development, sourcing, and it's a lot. Then you got to leave their house and clean and pack up. And I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Where do you find a lot of your inspiration?
I think from just ingredients, especially when I was in the restaurant.
How did you look at a parsnip and say, that needs to be ice cream?
Well, I think because I really like vegetables, and I think there's such a place for them in desserts that people like, it's just the whole association. You're like, well, that doesn't belong there. But like root vegetables naturally have more sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, beets are one of the biggest sources of sugar.
Yeah. It's
in our
disgusting.
Country, so it's like, I believe that might be top 3 or whatever. I don't know. But, and I think if you cook them a certain way or like treat them a certain way, like you can bring out the natural sort of sweetness in most vegetables.
Yep.
So that's probably part of it. So yeah, whether we're getting like cool, stuff from a farm, one of my buddy forages mushrooms, which is always fun to mess around with, or maybe like our rep from, one of our companies will show up and be like, oh, I have this like really cool, I don't know, syrup or even going to like the cheesemonger. I like go talk to him, and then he has like some cool ingredient he got in, or a funky cheese that he's like, oh, you'll like this, check this out. So I think I just get excited about one ingredient, and I'm like, all right, I really like this one ingredient. Let me like build a whole dessert around it, whether it's the, like the main component or not.
Yeah. Do you use any books to help you, like the Flavor Matrix or the Flavor Bible? Do you use anything like that to help you figure out the components around a specific ingredient?
I don't anymore. I did for the first handful of years of my career, for sure. It's like two of my favorite books to give to like new.
Oh, it's so powerful. I mean, it's literally the encyclopedia for food.
Yeah. I haven't opened one up in a long time, I'm not going to lie, but
well, now you just got all the knowledge now.
Yeah, we kind of like, and I think as you do it this longer and longer, you're able to like build a good palate and sort of trust, like, in your mind, like, all right, this tastes salty and I want to add sweet, you can kind of build up that.
And then textures, it all just kind of comes together.
Yeah, exactly.
I was usually pretty good about putting things together, but it was like, I'm missing this one element and I can't figure out what it needs to be. And so it's like, pistachio. Okay. So, I don't want to just put a pistachio on there. So let's figure out how we take that to a pistachio granola or a cookie, a crisp or something. Your textural elements are awesome. Well, I'm like, what is this? You're like, oh, it's coconut. And I'm like, oh, that's not at all what I would have figured out. So you're talented. It's crazy. How important is exercise to you?
Oh, it's like, I think you probably talked about this before, but it's pretty much everything. It's kind of what keeps me, I feel like I can generally be a level-headed person, but of course, if you say it out, that means you're not. But but I feel like without exercise, like I just kind of go crazy. And even, like the hours I've spent on my feet working over the years is obviously, like puts a toll on your body. And so if I'm not consistently exercising, I feel it. Like my back starts to hurt, or I have some sort of injury will pop up if I don't exercise for a few days, or at least I feel like that's the case.
Yeah, same.
But like mentally, it just, I don't know, like sets me up for the day. Like I feel more like everything's more clarified.
Do you exercise daily?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now I've been trying to force myself for like rest days because I'm not as good at that.
I'm terrible at
those.
those.
But I am realizing it's so much more beneficial too. But
Yeah, it is. Do you have a morning ritual?
Not consistently, and especially right now because I did when I was at the restaurant, but now I feel like early in summer, later.
What time were you waking up? Like 4 a.m.?
Yeah, yeah. So I could like get in the city, half hour so to get out of the house, get in the city by 5:30, be at the gym for an hour, take a quick shower, be at work before 7.
You're one of the first ones in the building, I assume.
Yeah, pretty much always.
There's nothing. I love being in my restaurant alone.
It's so
I just can't even explain. There's nothing to get in your way. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can just focus. I'm talking like laser focus. There's nothing.
yeah.
I mean, it can get a little lonely, but to just be able to walk in, nothing else going on, just you and your prep. It's just it's a great feeling. I love it.
It's a nice way to get like set up for the day and like kind of like plan out your day before you get the madness of like deliveries and cooks coming in and
reps that you don't know.
Yes.
I would have consistently a guy walk in here about 30 minutes before dinner service. He'd be like, "Hey, you got about 45 minutes to talk about our meat program?" I'm like, I don't.
Make an appointment.
If you could email me though. And then he wouldn't email me. He'd come back the next week. "Hey, man, you want to talk about this beef?" No, I do not want to. Now you're just making me angry. I don't.
Reps are like, I'm now friends with a handful of them that I've worked with over the years that I really like. But some reps are like, they're vicious. They have no, like, I'm like, you know how to sell. Like, I don't know. I'm not like pushy enough to be a sales rep.
But at some point it starts to turn me off. And I'm like, this is just not going to work. It's not going to work. Yeah. You're going to have to leave me alone. All right. Well, I want to know 3 things that you can't live without. Marla.
Like we're talking, does it have to be like materialistic?
I've generally said don't say people, but everybody says family first. And so,
I was about to say my dog.
I was going to say Marla for sure. I mean, it's the dog. But I would assume that about you. So let's go with 2. We'll say the dog. What's the next 2?
I mean, yeah, I guess, family and friends and, that's a hard question. I was about to say sunshine, which I feel super lame saying sunshine.
Oh, God.
But I literally live for like
hippy dippy stuff right here. Here we go. The sun. I really just need the sun. You would hate it right now.
Long walk on a beach with my dog in the sun,
Man, what is it? What are you, like a Pisces? Well, I don't know what astrological sign is that.
I know, so sad. I'd be right there with everyone else, just saying like dog, friends and family, and the outdoors.
Yeah. 2 things that you use every single day.
I mean, we're going basic here with like toothbrush and toilet paper.
Oh man!
I use every day. I would say, probably my blender. For
you make a smoothie every day?
Pretty much.
Really? What's in your smoothie?
I don't know. I switch it up. I mean, I definitely use protein powder, but mix of frozen fruits.
You put spinach in there?
Huh?
You put spinach in there?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, time to time. Yeah, sometimes I'll make a green one. Sometimes I'll be more fruit flavor forward.
It's so funny. I saw a commercial on YouTube this morning, and it was a dude making a smoothie. And literally the thought in my head was, who the hell makes a smoothie every day? I'm literally having a conversation. Now she's like, I make a smoothie every day. I'm like, wow, okay, people do make smoothies every day. That does happen.
Yeah, I always put like a little apple cider vinegar and always like some protein powder. I don't know. Pretty basic. It's like an easy, quick way to fuel myself. Otherwise, I'll end up drinking coffee until 10, 11 a.m. and like have the shakes.
Yeah, my wife thinks I'm going to have a heart attack because I have like 2 cups of coffee and then pre-workout in the morning.
Yep. That's me. French press, pre-workout.
Yeah, it's what it takes though. I got to get the juices going, It's not just natural. Okay. What's the single best piece of advice you've ever been given?
My mom said to me when I was younger that she goes, I don't care what you do for a living. No matter what you do, give 110%. I've always lived by that.
Yeah. I wrote this back when I first had kids. I had this weird mental issue where I thought I was going to die. And just, every time I was, I don't know, I was paranoid, hypochondria, whatever it is, but I was holding my child and I was like, what if this is the last time I hold him? Jesus. I mean, it was pretty dark. I'm not going to lie. I was not in a good headspace. And so I wrote this thing that's like notes to my boys. And one of them was, if you want to make shoelaces for the rest of your life, then make the best damn shoelaces you can make. And I really don't care what you do, as long as you go after it and you love it and you put your all into it. And really, if you do that, if you work with that sort of mentality and that level of excellence as your mantra, you really won't be able to fail. I mean, there's 7 billion people on this planet. Someone's going to align with the vision that you have, and they're going to get on board.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what how my mom felt like,
Smart lady.
Super supportive of whatever craziness I've gotten into.
What do your parents do?
So my mom she's kind of like retired, but she was a horticulturalist and did a lot of like weddings, like flowers for weddings, worked in nurseries, and now she's a volunteer on the fire department.
That's awesome.
And then my stepdad just retired. He was in kind of like programming, and then he's also a volunteer in the fire department.
Wow.
So,
you got some great parents. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, even after they retire, they're still doing stuff to be beneficial to the community.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you feel like the horticulturalist side of your mind, that's a hard word to say.
I know.
I don't know that I've ever said that word. My mouth did not want to put those syllables together. Do you feel like that influenced you at all into your love of nature? And did y'all have a garden outside growing up?
Yeah, she still does. It's huge. At that time, for my generation growing up, it was like,
yeah, we sound so old talking like that.
There's no social media and shit like that. So it was go outside in the summer. It was like, go outside and if you can't find something to do, then you're going to help me weed the garden. So yeah, my house is like a literal jungle, and I can spin this around, but so yeah, I definitely got a little bit of a green thumb from her, I like to think. But yeah, I have a couple gardens. My house is full of plants. I kind of live for it. I love it.
I killed a cactus, so we have some very tiny succulents in our house. They don't last long.
I feel like you're in the right place for that, though, aren't you?
I mean, just because I live here doesn't mean I can grow shit here. So I can't. I mean, I can grow weeds. We've got a lot of weeds in our mulch bed.
They always prevail.
It's very mint. Also, I planted mint one time. That was a bad idea. Then have you ever planted mint?
Yeah, it comes back every year.
Yeah, and it also kills everything in its path. It's like you could grow a yard of mint and it would take over all grass. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not a horticulturalist. God, that's a hard word to say.
There you go.
Great. That's my feat for the day. I said a word with 13 consonants in it. Well, I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. I mean, I think you're incredibly talented. You've got a hell of a work ethic. I know that there would be a lot of places that would benefit from having you consult with them, help them, teach them, train them. And, if people are willing to pay you to make themselves better, then everybody that dines at those restaurants will have a better experience.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And also for you, I was telling I've said actually a few times, you're like one of the few people I know that you're a chef, you own a restaurant, especially at like your stage in your career, and you're still always down to you were saying how you stage in Boston every year, besides COVID, because you still feel like there's always much more to learn. And I really appreciate that, because I think that can get lost when we get to, our age and our point in life where we're kind of wrapped up in what we're doing. But yeah, I think that's super rad.
Yeah, I think you can always learn. And I've got a friend who we were actually on the Food Network together. That's how we met. And he was from Hawaii, and he had his own thing going on, and he worked for a hotel, I believe. And then he was like 45 years old, and he went and staged with Curtis Duffy at Grace for a week.
Oh, nice.
Probably one of the hardest weeks of his life. I mean, 3 Michelin stars is not easy to walk into if you've never been in that environment. I mean, you're talking attention to detail, and his kitchen is super quiet. I mean, they don't talk. And there's
no laughing.
No, I would not fit in well in that environment at all. I'd be asked to leave within the first 5 minutes.
If it's just quiet, I'd start to laugh and just be like, this is awkward.
Well, it's even when they're putting food up to the pass to sell, they would start a stop clock, which gave them like 60 to 90 seconds to complete the dish and then get it out, because that's the optimal amount of time it can sit without losing too much quality or temperature or whatever. and they just don't talk. It's like chicken, steak, potato, and I'm just, this is super weird. But after that, he went and got a job with Dominique Crenn, and he worked with. He was like her culinary creative director guy, and then COVID hit, and he is now doing logistics for Amazon. It doesn't make any sense where you are.
You gotta do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, now he owns like a fleet of Amazon vans, and it's called like Michelin Logistics or something crazy. I don't know.
Wow.
Props to him for pivoting, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I can learn from everybody. 20 years ago, I could not have cared any less about learning. And now I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they're like, all these people kind of have the same story and the same thread. And sure they do. Like, we're born, we grow up, we get jobs, now we're here. But all these stories are so different and personal, and it's, we can learn from everybody. Who's got a different perspective and point of view. And that's the fun thing about talking to people, is that you've lived through different experiences than I have, and you've seen things differently. And, you love the outdoors, you love the sun, but you're trapped in a basement for, 18 hours a day. And, you just get to get a little insight from different people. And I don't know, that's the fun part about life.
Yeah, 100%.
It's cool. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a hectic schedule, but it's good to see you.
No, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. See you, Meg.